Finding new music to listen to these days is becoming a harder and harder task to complete. Unless Spotify's recommended page throws you a curveball, or the YouTube algorithm smiles upon you, finding something new or discovering a small artist is becoming a bit of a tall task. That is, unless you want to sift through boomer websites like Discogs or the wasteland that is Last.fm. However, there are still some websites worth sifting through, and one of them would be Bandcamp. One of the few places where you can really go down the same rabbit holes we all used to enjoy going through on YouTube back in the day. And while Bandcamp might be a landfill of pretentious and unlistenable garbage, it's also home to countless amazing records just waiting to be discovered. So, welcome to a new series on the channel, where your good friend Madison takes you through the trenches and showcases some hidden gems from Bandcamp. I have no real rules or genres in mind here, outside of just showcasing some great music that could use much more love and exposure. So, with that being said, let's jump in to 5 hidden gems from Bandcamp. Alright, I'm not even going to bullshit you here. I've been waiting for an opportunity to talk about Critic for a long time now. I mean, just listen to this and tell me you don't understand why. This project is incredibly underrated for just how amazing it really is. Now, I should preface that if you aren't a fan of projects like The Garden, Machine Girl, Death Grips, or any other fast-paced, genre-bending artist in that vein, well, Critic definitely isn't for you. The band is unapologetically avant-garde and really obnoxious, almost begging to stay a more niche project for hipsters like me to adore. But hey, Death Grips did break into the mainstream, so maybe they will too. Critic is a band based out of New York that first started putting out music in 2019, and well, that's about all the information there really is about them. Their social media is pretty barren outside of some info on shows and new releases, and as far as interviews go, they only really have one back from 2020 where they mostly just talked about how they really developed and made their full-length record Critic 2. So if you're dying for more information on them, that's probably your best bet. That being said, I really don't think it's all that important because the nitty-gritty isn't what's important here. Critic's music speaks for itself. And while they have a few great projects under their belt, it's their 2021 EP Truth Revealed that takes the cake as their best work. The album is fast, loud, glitchy, and a total joy to listen to, taking genres like IDM, industrial, hip-hop, and punk, and fusing them together in a way to create an intense but fun experience. Now, narrowing it down to 2 tracks off this record was a pain in the ass because, in all honesty, the whole thing is best experienced as one cohesive piece, and it's fantastic front to back. But if I had to choose 2, it would be Angel and Bike, coincidentally songs that are back-to-back on the EP. Angel is probably the most straightforward song from the project, taking a more traditional approach to experimental hip-hop. The whole track has an otherworldly vibe to it, from its masterful use of samples, its raw drum sections, and the loose flow of the vocals themselves. Also, this. Hearing Blink Banshee-esque vocal sampling is a treat on anything, and it's definitely deserving as a standout on the EP. Now, Bike, on the other hand, is a far different affair. That's sampling of Centipede is such a great touch to what is already a dysphoric monster of a track. The warping vocals with often, at times nonsensical lyrics meld perfectly with the track's ever-evolving nature, and this is what really makes Lip Critic stand out, creating strange and entropic songs that both sound nonsensical and intense. Their entire discography is worth binging through, and I can't recommend them enough. Do yourself a favor and check out Lip Critic. Nano Ray is a newcomer, but by no means a slouch. He's an artist who, in my opinion, is one of the apexes of the new electronic scene, having a ton of variety in his sound as well as releasing music at a near inhuman speed. From liquid drum and bass, breakcore, to rave, Nano Ray covers all the bases and is one of those artists who can instantly be recognized when you hear them. While they might still be a relative newcomer, they've already put out multiple standout records and shown themselves as a producer who will continually raise the bar as the years go on. Choosing an album to showcase for this video was a harder task than I thought. Toy Box is one of their newer releases and is a fantastic record, and Zapper, one from a few years ago, has entered my top 20 albums of all time, but I think the best album to get people into Nano Ray is the unbeatable Nurse 2. Nurse 2 is an album that takes equal influence from Machine Girl, DJ Technork, and funny enough, the Sonic Riders soundtrack, where many electronic artists these days try to go for the too edgy for me vibe that Sewer Slut does. Nano Ray is a breath of fresh air that stands in the realm of intense but fun. And Nurse 2 shows this off in its full glory. While it might be a challenging listen to those not acquainted with higher BPM genres of music, it does showcase the very best in the modern electronic sphere. From fantastic production, layered and complex sound design, to creative buildups and drops, Nurse 2 goes out of its way to impress you time and time again. A few of the songs off this monster that really showcase the insane nature of the music to be found on it would be Zombie, Phobos, and Elt. Zombie is the second track off the record, and it's just a massive punch to the face. Showing off the high speed and high intensity style that Nano Ray specializes in, though with a bit of a bipolar twist as it jumps from both loud and distorted to very pretty and dreamy, though the softer, dreamier side of the sound is shown off in full display on Phobos, a track that slows things down, at least by Nano Ray standards, as well as indulges in some creative percussion work. That being said, Elt is definitely my favorite track from the bunch, taking the Y2K rave and Japanese video game elements of the sound and bringing them to their forefront. The entire song dances on that line between intense breakcore and lush electronica, constantly shifting between both sounds, never leaving space for a dull moment to appear in its 3-minute runtime. And while I know I already broke the rule of everything by choosing more than just 2 tracks to showcase, should be enough to tell you that the variety in sound really cannot be matched among most other producers around today. Mark my words, Nano Ray is a sleeping giant, and you're welcome for finding your new favorite producer.
You want to see other land, big cities, big mountains, big oceans, and so on and so on and so on.
To slow it down a little bit, I have a curveball for you. Elbows is an indie jazz artist from the Bay Area of Northern California. He's one of the most creative artists that I've heard in years, though he handicapped himself with the moniker he chose. Any attempt to look him up will greet you with a much bigger butt rock group under the name Elbow. But disregard them, they suck. We're here to talk about the real deal here. Because Elbows is truly something special. For lack of a better term, I would put them into the indie category, though they take a lot more from jazz than anything else. The lush instrumentation and complex musicianship alone would have gained my attention, but what takes Elbows to the next level, at least in my opinion, is their approach to atmosphere. The music has a very mature vibe to it with some nasally but nice vocals that complement the whole thing. Though much like artists like George Clanton and Nelward, who have a clear pop influence to their sound, there's an underlying anger and darkness in Elbows' music that finds ways of creeping out in almost every single song. Out of all the artists talked about today, Elbows has the smallest discography, being one of the newest to the scene and having only released 2 EPs and a full length. But that full length happens to be what we're here to talk about today because it's one of the best debuts I've ever heard from a small artist. Tales from the Old Mill is a long album, but it's definitely worth your time. While not the most intense or exciting thing on this list, it's one of the most rewarding. It takes indie rock, jazz, trip hop, and blends them all together to create a unique sound not found anywhere else. The closest artists I could compare with Elbows would be Triathlon and McBass, but even that's a bit of a stretch. The only way to describe Elbows is by playing some of their music. As you can hear, it's very different from most of the stuff that you would find online today, and the album truly is a treat. Now, 2 tracks that are especially exceptional are Passed Away and Missing Moon. Passing Away is one of those strange hybrid tracks that takes elements of trip hop and jazz and blends them into a creeping and dreamy mixture. It's a creative song that shows off some impressive piano and bass work especially. The whole song just bleeds passion, and you can tell just how much Elbows cares about the music he makes. Now, Missing the Moon, on the other hand, is a far more upbeat song, though it's on the nose with its more somber elements. It carries a very sleepy energy to it and shows off just a little bit of influence from Gary Wilson.
Missing the moon in the darkest of nights. How long must I wait to find?
The track is the album's closer and goes out with a bang, and honestly, the musicianship of this song reminds me a lot of Tyler the Creator's more jazzy output. And while I've been sitting here talking about how Elbows is this incredibly unique and one-of-a-kind artist, something about him that really sets him apart is, while still being unique and one-of-a-kind, he really appeals to a massive crowd of people, from Tyler the Creator fans to the previously mentioned Gary Wilson, Triathlon, McBass. If you like jazzy indie music, then Elbows really is an artist for you. So here's to a great debut and hoping for even more impressive stuff in the future. Well, would you look at the time? It's the part of the video where I e-beg and I ask you to please check out and support my Patreon. Given that I don't compromise on the clips or the subject matter that I talk about on this channel, monetization and making those big YouTube bucks just is not really possible for me. So if you like what I do and you want to see more of it, Patreon is the best place to support me. If you would all enjoy the content or music or anything that I create, please consider supporting. I couldn't thank you enough. You have my gratitude. Now, with this entry, there isn't much to talk about outside of the music. Funny enough, I ran into this brilliant son of a bitch's music on accident, and Seiji Skami is one of my favorite finds in the past few years. While the New Orleans producer seems to be a bit elusive, his music and aesthetics should tell you everything you need to know about what you're getting into. The aesthetics alone showcase that this is a fan of JRPGs, classic survival horror, cyberpunk anime, and overall Y2K nostalgia. And given my own interests, I'm a sucker for it. And that's just the aesthetics alone. Seiji Skami's music stands high above many of the other artists in the new electronic scene. Well, you would assume just by the way the art looks that this would be another breakcore artist or some edgy vaporwave project. It's actually some pretty creative and fantastic alternative hip-hop, as well as it takes from the previously mentioned breakcore and vaporwave. While almost all of Seiji's releases have standout tracks on them, the one that really sold me on the whole project was the EP 7. And yeah, I know, the name and the cover is a reference to Killer 7. The EP really is the best introduction point here because it showcases a lot of different sounds that you can expect to hear from Seiji Skami. From the J-pop laden Shinjuku jungle, the dark house-inspired MP, self-describing sleepy, you get the point. Every song shows off a different sound, and it's fantastic. A lot like with our first pick, Lip Critic, this whole project is best listened to front to back, but if I did have to choose two standouts, they would be MP and Make Me. I already described MP as being a dark house-inspired song, but you really need to hear it to understand. While it might not be as boisterous as Nano Ray, its ability to suck you into another world with its atmosphere is impeccable, and one of the many strengths to be found across all of Seiji Skami's discography. Now, Make Me is on the opposite end of the spectrum, picking up the pace and showcasing a fusion between breakcore and beat-oriented hip-hop. I know the obvious comparison here is Old Machine Girl, and I do agree that it sounds very similar, but the energy and atmosphere of the song showcases something truly unique, and that's something I can say about their entire discography as well. It offers a much needed breath of fresh air to the sound that's been dominated by Sewer Slut clones and lazy vaporwave projects. Give it a year or two, and you'll be seeing Seiji Skami doing some insane numbers, and more than likely, he'll end up spawning his own army of clones.
I hate that stupid mouse.
Ada Rook is a name that might not be huge at the moment, but mark my words, they're a sleeping giant. Even getting the attention of Legends Health and landing a guest spot on a song on Disco 4 Volume 2. Ada is most well known for being a part of the duo Black Dresses, a prominent name in the hyperpop scene. Though in my opinion, Ada's solo music is definitely the cream of the crop in terms of their output. They've released quite a few great records over the last few years, such as Shed Blood and the fantastically named Ugly Death No Redemption Curse I Love You, which is a must listen for anyone who's into aggro tech or hyperpop. Though the album that I think showcases the best of Ada Rook's strengths is their 2018 album Parasite, a record chock full of influence from all across the musical spectrum. Parasite takes elements from industrial, electronica, alternative rock, post-hardcore, and even emo, and melds it all together into a hypnotic and intense mixture. Though, fair warning, this record really isn't for the faint of heart and gets pretty dark at times, which is also a staple of Ada's work. I know that deep inside there's just disease, a wound inside a rotting memory, but but amidst the wreckage and the sparks and blood, I can still find faces and names that I love. For all my cold lugubrious, I just want to be happy with and without me. I cannot feel my place in this anymore. And for this record, this is actually pretty tame. As I said, Parasite gets pretty dark, but its darkness is a cathartic one. The album's two best tracks are easily Trust and Cocoon, with Trust being a showcase of how well Ada can balance catchy electronica elements with dark alt rock. The whole song is just a great showing of the diverse cast of genres Rook takes from, as well as just how dark she's able to get things to be without ever needing to rely solely on shock elements and distortion. And the track Cocoon does its part in showing this off as well, but this time playing out in a more post-punk style track with some industrial percussion to add flavor. Now, Cocoon is my favorite song off the album, and its hypnotic vibe is impressive. And the Crystal Castle sound from some of the acoustic portions and the vocal effects that are just the cherry on top really elevate this to be the best the record has to offer. Like I said, most of Ada Rook's catalog is fantastic, but Parasite is just on a whole nother level. It's dark, cathartic, full of rich textures and thick atmosphere. It really takes you somewhere that nothing else really can, and for that, it's earned its place among my favorites. And if I wanted, I could find something to talk about with nearly every song on Parasite, and maybe one day Ada will get their own video as well. But for now, take my advice and delve into her discography on Bandcamp. She's a force to be reckoned with and a fantastic showcase of the new wave of creative artists we're seeing pop up. So, there you have it. 5 underrated gems from Bandcamp. I hope that this is the first of many episodes because it was a lot of fun to make. And with the amount of small, underrated, and sometimes even forgotten projects that I come across, I'd love to be able to showcase them in future episodes. Bandcamp is a great resource to find and support new music. Don't let its vast and admittedly oversaturated library fool you. There's gold, you just gotta dig for it. Now, if you have any recommendations for artists I should showcase in future episodes, leave them in the comments and I'll check them out. I hope you heard something you enjoyed, and if you did, let me know who your favorite artist of the bunch was. With that, subscribe, support me on Patreon, follow me on Twitter. I'll see you in the next video.